I sit here with interest when Kathy talks about chloramines and the chromium 6 hexavalent chromium issue, the standard currently at 50, proposed to be dropped to 10, is creeping upon us, and it could have significant impacts to the cost of water in this area. Currently, all wells in the RCSD are compliant, but they're sitting at 11, 12, and 15 parts per billion, and which is just above the new proposed standard that may be coming out as early as August. So looking at that and having applied a calculator to the potential impacts to each well, the impacts in purchasing the equipment are close to $9 million just to get the equipment on site. And the O&M costs are running an average of about $250,000 a year in addition to that. Now that $9 million and $9.25, just call it $9 million, exceeds the entire water and sewer budget, lighting and everything else in the RCSD. So that's how important this issue really is. So I've been spending my time knocking on doors in the Capitol of those legislators that I know, and there's a lot of legislators in there today from local government that were former county supervisors that are now sitting in the legislature, and bringing this to their attention and requesting their assistance in fighting this issue to determine what an equitable reduction in the maximum contamination level would be. Certainly we want it above whatever we're at, but on a statewide basis, what is really fair and why are they reducing it from 50 to 10? The question I asked was how many lives were proposed to be saved in reducing the MCL from 50 to 10 and at the significant cost spread across the entire state. And they said, well, 1 in a million people will be saved. And with all the other impacts in our environment today, 1 in a million does not sound like the significant cost attached to it is money well spent, especially when the same an agency, a state agency, questioned me from an engineering perspective about the severe cost, $6 million to serve 19 people. But that was only $6 million, and you saved 19 people. And they said that was too much money. Now, how ridiculous is the MCL for chromium 6 when chromium 6 basically the standard has been working? There's no real big evidence of an outbreak of cancer-causing stemming from the chromium in itself, with the exception of the Hinckley case that Aaron Brockovich brought forward, but those levels were in the 14,000.
That's the question I was going to ask, what were the levels?
The water was actually purple. I mean,
Yeah.
it was colored with chromium.
14,000?
14,000.
What you gotta understand too, in Hinckley, the water was contaminated not by natural causes, but by leaching from the PG&E plant, from their cooling towers into the water table. And that is why you had such a high level of chromium.
That's correct.
The chromium they're talking about now is not the Aaron Brockovich chromium. This is stuff that occurs in the water naturally.
Correct.
And it's 50 parts per billion has been the standard for decades. And for some reason, they want to lower it to 10. And the sad thing about it is the state of California wants to pass the legislation through back channels rather than getting it out in front of the public and holding hearings on this thing, because if this gets publicized enough and people start talking about it and making phone calls, legislation, I really believe, cannot stand the scrutiny of reasoning.
Here's the problem, however, it's not legislation. It's currently sitting in a budget trailer bill, which means, when you're in legislature, if you had it in legislation, at least you'd have the opportunity to sit before a committee and voice your opinion, in opposition or support, of, the recommended, legislation. In this case, there is no voicing your opinion, with the exception of trying to build a coalition of legislators that are bold enough to possibly stand up to whomever has the pin on the budget and request that be sent back for further development or discussion or something. We learned about this in October. It was apparently pushed forward last August with a quick turnaround, and they proposed this new standard, or they're estimating that it may be passed in August of this year. So with that, I have been spending time with CSDA, with grassroots organizations, and speaking with Aqua to put the coalition together to get some groundswell working against this. And it's starting to grow roots on it, and I have a lot more meetings scheduled in the legislature to do walking again and knocking on doors. I did speak with Connie Conway, the Republican leader of the Assembly, and she told me, she said, "Steve, you know that I understand local government." Connie was a former county supervisor in Tulare and worked when I was president of the California State Association of Counties, and we worked together. So she said, "You know, I understand local governments, and I know how many special districts we have in my county, in my district." And she said, "I'm on board with you on this issue." So if we can get the Republican leader to reach across the aisle, and she can, and stimulate that discussion on both sides of the aisle, because this is going to have the potential of driving up the cost of water greater than any other single impact that we've known. And we're going to be sitting trying to figure out how we're going to pay for that. Now, we may amateurize that over a long period of time, but it's another one of those costs that we're going to incur. And unfortunately, every time we turn around and we have to pass that cost through to the ratepayers, you know, they're not happy, and we can't blame them.
Steve, you know, you periodically send out letters to the community, to ratepayers. Maybe send them out some information, because the bad part about it, no one can vote on it because it's not a ballot issue. It's you know, on the backside of the backside. But the other problem I see, you're talking about $9 million for the equipment, and $250,000 for maintenance. That means us and every other district our size, either the ratepayers are going to catch it. She talked about people moving out of communities already. That means everyone's going to get up and go back into the metropolitan cities where you have the big utilities, or you're going to bankrupt everybody, and the big utilities have no choice but to take over. And I don't think that's the intention, having regional water. Well, perhaps it is, but it's kind of scary that they could bankrupt us real quick with just a piece of paper coming across and someone signed it. And maybe perhaps what you're talking about, the grassroots level, maybe they're not seeing the impact because they're just seeing, first of all, to go from 40 points that quick. That's like the stock market. It drops and goes up. You have no control over it. But I would encourage you to perhaps craft something so the community will know. Maybe we get them. We know about it now, and we're concerned, but maybe we need to get a little bit close. So they start doing some writing. Get in touch with their city people. Assemblyman Fox, all the folks, and start going over there and asking these people where this come from, and what are they going to do about it. Having Conway on your side is very, very good. She's a very powerful lady. But you know what? Whatever they did, they didn't ask her permission either to do this. And so